The ongoing negotiations that took place for a long while between the Ford government and CUPE, the union representing thousands of education workers across the province of Ontario, is something that many people have been drawing their attention to over the past couple of weeks. Now, education workers across the province have staged a walkout in protest of the Ford government not increasing their wages. And joining me now to discuss that and more is Laura Walton, president of the Ontario School Board Council of Unions. Laura, thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
So I will just say before we get started, over the course of the past week or so on the program, I've spoken with Fred Hahn, the president of CUPE. You've joined before, you're joining again today. I've spoken with opposition MPPs. I'm still waiting for Education Minister Stephen Lecce to accept an invitation to join. So I look forward to that when that does happen. But let me just start out with you as it relates to the impact that some of these kids not being able to be in the classroom. What do you foresee as perhaps the impact of that? And what does that say as to the importance of reaching a deal as soon as possible?
Well, I think, one of the things that was concerning for all of us, even before we started, was the level of service that kids were able to get in schools anyways. There just simply is not enough EAs. There's not enough custodians to keep your schools clean and secure. There's not enough early childhood educators to get those little ones started off on the right foot. So it already was a concern, even the services that were being provided. I think, when none of us want to be out of school, I am a mom with kids. I want them to be in school as well. And I think it speaks to the importance of what we're fighting for, that we have taken this kind of level of action, because quite frankly, kids need to be in school. Kids need to have the services that they require in school. And the people who are providing those services need to be able to afford to live.
And I mean, I know this is largely up to each of the individual school boards, but what do you foresee next week looking like in schools across Ontario? And what will educational workers, a part of your union, CUPE, of course, what will they be up to next week? And, will it be kind of the same situation as Friday? What can people expect?
And you're right, it's each individual school board until its own. So the one that my children go to, they've said, we're closed, we're going to do asynchronous learning. I've already sent an email to the teachers of my son's teachers and said, respectfully, he's not going to be online. He's going to be visiting picket lines with my mom while I'm here. Some schools are doing synchronous learning, and you folks probably remember that. That's where you had to log into your Google Meet at a certain time each day. And some folks are going to be doing that. I think, what I would suggest is people need to do what works best for them as a family. We really encourage folks to come out and visit the picket lines, visit those protest lines. This is an opportunity for students to learn about history, because I think as an entire province, we haven't done a really good job of teaching history. And so many people may, in fact, not know that, for instance, the right to even be able to do a strike is a trade-off that came about through an illegal strike, or the fact that maternity leave is now in place came from postal workers doing a political protest. So, I encourage people to come out and visit those protest lines. We're there, we are welcoming kids. We're bringing our own kids out to them. If not, we do understand that folks may need to do on the line learning.
And I mean, obviously, going back to the classroom for many students is dependent on whether or not a deal between CUPE and the government can be reached. So what do you foresee as needing to be done, obviously, other than increasing CUPE's wages, in order to get kids back into the classroom? And I mean, what is your message to parents who are kind of in limbo as to what they should do?
Yeah, I think there's a few pieces that need to happen. The fact that we are not able to have kids in school should speak to the importance of the work that we do. And so why it needs to be invested in, not just for the wages. I want to be clear, the wages are one piece, but also investing in the services that kids need. I have heard time and time again from parents who are saying, my kid is not getting the supports they need. The reason why they're falling behind is not because they're out of school, it's because of the lack of supports. So what we're encouraging parents to do is contact their MPP. At the end of the day, all of this could be settled. But what has happened is you have a government who is stripping away the rights of workers. And it's now moved it away from just the wages and the services that are needed for CUPE workers, and really focusing on those charter rights, those human rights that workers have, and what we need to protect for future generations of workers to come.
And fair point. I mean, I think a lot of people probably understand that. When you look at what your union, though, is asking the government versus what the government is willing to give, at least publicly, what we know so far, it seems to be a far gap between the two of them. So, I mean, what do you foresee as the solution? And if the two sides can't reach an agreement soon, then what might that mean for students in Ontario? Will they just have to do synchronous, asynchronous learning for the next few weeks, or?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important to note is, it came up very clearly yesterday, and you mentioned, you were on the CBC, I was as well, and Minister Lecce was on there prior to you and I. Their bill was written before our strike notice even was put in. So it's been clear that this government has never intended to negotiate. So what people need to be doing is saying, enough is enough. The money is there. As a matter of fact, the money that is being paid out to parents would more than pay for the services that need to be put in place. It would cover the wage increase that we had asked for in the first year of the collective agreement. The money is there. It's how they choose to use it. And I think what's very interesting is we know that Peter Bethlenfalvy, the finance minister, will be giving us an update in just a few days on how the province is doing. You're going to find that the province is doing extremely well financially. Revenues are up. And what people forget is that education workers were taxpayers too. So any increase that we get in wages means more money going back in, not just through income tax, but also because we spend money in the community. And so there'll be more money that'll be flowing through the community as well. So, I think it's time to really look at this from a broader perspective and realize that this idea that workers need to be, brought down or that we should be really racing to the bottom is not going to help our province in any way.
And just lastly, before we conclude, you mentioned the notwithstanding clause in Bill 28. Obviously, that is what is essentially overriding CUPE and educational workers' rights to bargain and instead charging them $4,000 per day. I mean, do you fear perhaps that $4,000 per day will impact education workers? And to your notice, as of this point, has anyone been charged that amount?
So to my knowledge, no one has been charged anything. One of the things that I would say is that this is why workers come together as a union, because collectively the resources are there to help protect workers. I think really what this has done is really highlight the need for unions as we move into, the next kind of generation of workers. But further to that, I think what my bigger concern is what is this government hiding that they're so determined to punish the lowest paid workers in Ontario's education system?
Okay, Laura Walton, President of the Ontario School Board Council of Unions. Thanks so much for making the time, Laura.
Thanks, Wyatt. Take care.